ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Monday Night Football Overtime. Giants, Cowboys, NFC East family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's NFC East family business. You know how the family do it. Oh, yes, I do. And that was some good family business right there, man. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I knew I would. Knew it was going to be low scoring. Actually surprised that the Cowboys scored 23 tonight. Could have scored more if CeeDee Lamb could catch. I mean, that was a great catch in the back of the end zone. And he atoned for the drop in the first half. But this is why I continue to say when people start to put CeeDee Lamb up in that upper echelon, this is why I say pause. Okay? Yep, he can make the great play. How about you make the one that's right in front of you, though? The nice and easy one that you drop. And this is something that he does. He drops the football. You know, I hear Troy Aikman say, hey, you may watch the rest of his career. You'll never see him drop another one like that. Bullshit. I've seen him drop that many a times in his career. Okay? That's not the first time. But great catch to come back and atone for the drop in the first half. When the Cowboys needed him most, he stepped up. Big fourth down grab for CeeDee Lamb. A big catch to get him down to the one, and then the touchdown to give them the lead for good in this football game. So he did make up for that massive drop in the first half. Cooper Rush, you're putting a rush on me, but I like to know you better, baby. Cooper Rush, 3-0. Hey, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. He's 3-0. It's Cooper Rush. And Cowboys look like they have themselves a quality backup quarterback. He knows the offense. He's comfortable. I didn't think he pressed at all tonight. That's a good Giants defense that he faced. I thought it was a really good job of being balanced. They showed you consistently throughout the night how many runs versus how many passes, and it was usually balanced all night. At one point, it was 9-9, then it was 14-14, and they kind of kept him in a mode where he didn't have to carry the load. Good game by Ezekiel Elliott, really good game by Tony Pollard. You combine those two, I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Cowboys had over 120 yards rushing. Pollard had a big run. I thought Zeke had a couple of solid runs. Oh, wow. 176 yards rushing for the Cowboys in this game. 13 for 105 for Pollard. We know he had the big 46-yarder. But I remember Zeke had a nice little run, too. I didn't know it was 27 yards, though. He was 15 for 73. So Cowboys ran it well. Both teams actually ran it well in this game. Daniel Jones, really padded the Giants rushing stats. He had 79 yards. So they had 167 total with Saquon's 81. Of course, he had the 36-yard touchdown scamper. You hate to see Sterling Shepard go down at the end of this game. That's been the bugaboo of his career, staying healthy. Really good dude. You hate to see it. And it doesn't look good. Anytime you got to get carted off, anytime it's a non-contact injury, anytime you've had the injuries that he's had throughout his career, you only think the worst about what just happened to Sterling Shepard. And that could be it for him, honestly, in a Giants uniform. That's just a bitter pill to swallow. Hoping that it's not as bad as we think, but I'm not confident there. This is a good win for Dallas, man. The thought, the prevailing thought, and I was guilty of this. I called Boss up, immediately after Dak Prescott got hurt in that Tampa Bay game. And I said, your season's done already, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, it is. And so the prevailing thought was Cincinnati coming to town. No one expected the Giants to start 2-0 this season and have the kind of environment that they had. That was a really good environment they had for that game tonight. They showed up, they showed out, they wore white as their coach requested. And, they made it a tough atmosphere for the Cowboys to get a win in. But unfortunately, there were some calls that I thought were a little, But all in all, I thought it all balanced itself out. I thought there were some bad calls on Dallas' side. I thought there were some poor calls on the Giants' side. I thought there were some missed calls by the officials. But at the end of the day, I think everything kind of evened itself out. And the better team won. The team that was supposed to win this game won when I think it's all said and done. But I thought this season was in jeopardy when Dak Prescott got injured, at the end of that week 1 loss to the Buccaneers, and you see Cincinnati coming to town. You got to go to the Giants. You got Washington after that. You could easily find yourself being 0-4, if not 1-3. And depending on, where those losses are, you could have 2 losses within the division. And Dak Prescott comes back week 6, and you could be staring at 1-5 or, 2-4 in the face, but you're 0-2 in the NFC East. And it seemed like a pretty daunting task for Cooper Rush, and it seemed like the Cowboys were in trouble. And, 2 weeks later, totally different narrative on this Dallas Cowboys football team. Dak Prescott's got the stitches out. He may be able to play this upcoming week against Washington. They've won 2 in a row. They're 2-1. They're just a game back of the Philadelphia Eagles for first place. So they put themselves, and they got the Eagles in about 2 weeks or so, do the Cowboys. I think it's a week 6 matchup versus the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken, again, on a Monday night, might be even a Sunday night. So that probably is the game. If I'm Dallas, I'm targeting for Dak Prescott to be back in the lineup. But I'll just say this, Cooper Rush has steadied the ship. That defense has been phenomenal. They were outstanding again tonight. We knew that this was going to be a defensive struggle between these two teams. The Giants defense, I thought, showed up and gave it a great effort, but it wasn't good enough. We'll talk about the Giants here in a second, but this Cowboys defense is the catalyst of this football team. Even when Dak comes back, I still view the defense as the driving mechanism that's going to help this Cowboys team get to ultimately where it wants to go, which is winning the division, getting back to the postseason, and maybe winning a game or two and making some noise. The NFC is wide open. Really, the entire league is wide open. I can say this with 100% confidence, and we'll talk more about this on the podcast tomorrow, but the NFL is wide open. There isn't a single dominant team in the league this season. That means anybody could win the Super Bowl. Anybody can win the Super Bowl. Now, looking at Dallas, they're going to get Michael Gallup back more likely than not next week. They're probably going to have their tight end Dalton Schultz back next week. You see they're playing around with the offensive line. Tyler Smith is that right, left tackle. They stuck in Jason Peters at left guard for a brief spell in this game. So that's something to watch for maybe moving forward into the future. Maybe they put Peters, at left tackle, slide Trey Smith back to guard. Who knows? I think they're just going to turn the young fella loose. He's already at tackle. He's playing solid football. I think he's a walking penalty. He had 2 more penalties tonight. I think that's going to just be something that you have to deal with Tyler Smith. That's why they didn't want to put him at tackle yet. Give him a chance to kind of acclimate himself to the NFL, maybe calm down those penalties and then slide the kid outside. Well, he's going to go ahead and get that on-the-job training. Seems to be picking up everything well. You can see that he's a great athlete. Saw him get out in space a couple of times tonight. Looked really good in that fashion. And so, you look at what the Cowboys defensively put on the field. DeMarcus Lawrence is funny. Boss said, look, DeMarcus Lawrence needs to get going. And, he hasn't had a sack yet. He's not impacting games. Well, there you go, boss. You got it tonight. 3 sacks for DeMarcus Lawrence. The guy that the Giants highlighted and tried to stop, and Michael Parsons, didn't have a massive impact on the game necessarily from a statistic standpoint, but just because they had to always account for him, it freed up other guys to have one-on-one matchups, and the Cowboys defensive linemen in particular took advantage of those opportunities, including, Anthony Barr as well as a linebacker who was consistently blitzing on the night. They put a ton of pressure on Daniel Jones. At one point, he was pressured 22 times. I don't know what that final statistic ended up being. I don't know how many times he got hit in the game. I mean, I can check right now and see how many times he was hit in the game. He was hit 12 times was Daniel Jones. He was pressured a ton more. They sacked him 6 times or 5 times. They had a sack negated by a penalty. They were all over him, and they were blitzing from all sorts of angles. It was actually so much fun to watch both of these defensive coordinators go at it, because we know Wink Martindale isn't afraid to send a blitz. He hasn't met a blitz he hasn't liked in his life. And then to see Dan Quinn turning the dogs loose, there were a lot of blitzes from Wilson tonight. sending a lot of guys. Anthony Barr was consistently coming after the quarterback. Obviously, Michael Parsons is always coming after the quarterback. So they sent a ton of heat. Leighton Vander Esch was on the prowl tonight as well. So it was just fun watching these two defensive coordinators go at it and send, the proverbial kitchen sink at the opposing quarterback and asking those guys to deal with the pressure. And I thought both quarterbacks actually handled the pressure well, especially Daniel Jones, because the offensive line in New York isn't as strong as the one in Dallas. And even Dallas has their own fair share of issues, but Daniel Jones got beat up tonight. He got abused. He kept fighting. And so just want to say one more thing about the Cowboys. To win 2 straight, to put yourself in the position that you've done, having the adversity that, arose after week 1 speaks volumes about this team, how they're constructed. I've always talked about the Cowboys and how they draft. You heard the stat during the telecast about 71% of their team being draft picks by the Cowboys. That's how you do it in this league. You build through the draft, you supplement your roster through free agency. The Cowboys do it really well. And you saw that now with all the injuries. Noah Brown, this is a guy that's been essentially a blocking wide receiver his entire career. He gets an opportunity. He made a hell of a catch tonight on a ball that was a little bit too high. He goes up, snags it. He had a really strong night catching the football. He was outstanding last week against Cincinnati. This is the kind of depth that you're tapping into. They had a 3rd round pick at receiver, or 3rd or 4th round pick, get his first catch tonight. And he hadn't played the first 2 weeks of the season. So they're tapping into that depth. Simi Fioco is a guy that's just been hanging around the last couple of years. Throw him out on the field. All these tight ends, no Dalton Schultz. So, Hendershot gets an opportunity. Peyton Hendershot out of Indiana gets an opportunity. You see a little bit more of Ferguson from Wisconsin. And so all these Big Ten tight ends get in there and they get an opportunity. And that's what happens when you build it the right way, when you have the proper depth. You don't fall off a cliff when your guys that you are counting on aren't available. So they got it done tonight. They ran the football effectively. They took the pressure effectively off of Cooper Rush. And when he needed to make throws, when they were down, 13-6, he went out there, had a tremendous possession, took them right down the field, and they got in the end zone. When they had the chance to put their foot on the throats of the Giants by taking the lead with the touchdown drive, he took them right down the field, made throw after throw after throw, put that game away. And then, again, when the opportunities presented itself, he made the throws on the 4th down to CeeDee Lamb. He gets a rifle shot in there, hits CeeDee Lamb down the sidelines, and then throws the fade ball, a great fade ball that CeeDee Lamb catches with one hand. So Cooper Rush managed this game well, but when his number was called, when they needed him to step up, he made the play. And that Dallas defense can't say enough about what they've done to start this season off. Even in the loss against Tampa Bay, that thing could have been really ugly. And Tampa Bay was in the red zone 5 times. They came away with 1 touchdown in that game. So this Cowboys defense has been outstanding, and they were again tonight as they get the job done 23-16. You go to the Giants side of things, it's a tough, bitter pill to swallow. Look, this is a Giants offense that is offensively challenged. They don't have a ton of weapons that scare you. They just lost one of their best weapons tonight, potentially for the remainder of the season. We'll see the extent of the injury to Sterling Shepard, but they don't have a ton of guys that really scare you. Kenny Golladay is struggling mentally. He had another drop tonight. And I think things are really going south for him. They're going to have to do something with him, whether they make him inactive or they trade him. Something's got to give there. He needs a fresh start, and he's not going to be a guy that's just going to shut up and take a demotion. He's going to be vocal about not playing. So something's going to happen there, but he wasn't good tonight. Again, the one catch that he did have, that looked like it could have gave him some life and gave him some confidence, that was taken back due to a penalty that a lot of people didn't agree with on Sterling Shepard on the pass interference. It is what it is. At the end of the day, I thought Daniel Jones battled tonight. The circumstances were not ideal with all the pressure that he was under, all the duress. Yet I thought he functioned in dysfunction on the football field today. So I got to give him credit. Used his legs like we know he is fully capable of doing. He sprinkled in a little vanilla Vic tonight and was getting the job done using his legs. His arm wasn't too damn bad either tonight, even though he missed a couple of throws. And then obviously the interception at the end of the game is not ideal. But all in all, he competed, gave them an opportunity. Saquon Barkley was solid. Again, up front, he's just not getting a lot of space to operate. But when he did get some space, you saw what he was able to do on the 37-yard touchdown run. And so this Giants team, man, I was impressed with the defense. Again, there were some opportunities there for Dallas, obviously, the drop by CeeDee Lamb and some of the plays that may have been wiped away due to penalties and things of that nature. But all in all, they gave the Giants offense a chance in this game time after time after time. They responded. It sucks, though. The Giants offense gives you a lead, and you know they're not going to score many more points after they hit 13. You've got to find a way to make it stick, okay? And to give up the touchdown on the very next drive, you didn't even allow that offense to have an opportunity to build on the momentum of taking the lead 13-6. I call it, in baseball, they call it a shutdown inning. When you go out, you score a run or two, and now you need your pitcher to get you a shutdown inning. Go out there, stop the opposition from putting up any runs, and make what your team just gave you stick. That's what I call it in the NFL. After your offense scores, I need a shutdown drive from my defense. I need you to go out there and keep the opposition off the scoreboard. Allow my offense to get the football back with the momentum that they just got from the score and see if they can't add to the lead or to cut down on the deficit or wherever the score is in the game. Give them an opportunity to continue to build on the momentum from the last drive. And the Giants defensively simply didn't do that. When their team needed them the most, they take the lead. The crowd is as raucous as it's been all night, 13-6. You let them come right back and tie that ball game up, and then ultimately let them take the lead. You have a chance on a crucial fourth down to get a stop. You're unable to do that. And so the defense, for as good as it was tonight, they had opportunities. And they just simply didn't get it done. But this is a Giants team that right now is overachieving. You're 2-1. No one gave you a chance to be sitting here at 2-1 3 weeks into the season. Maybe this Giants team is going to be better than we thought. I still think the jury's out, because when you look at the Giants' point total this season, it's 21 in week 1 against the Titans. It's 19, and it took about 19 turnovers from the Titans for them to get the 19 points that they scored last week against the Carolina Panthers. And then this week, it's 16 points. They're not scoring enough points on a weekly basis to win football games consistently. Now, you look across the league, and the point total is down. We got 14-12. We got 11-10. So there are opportunities. But as we know, in this league, it's rare that you're going to win games scoring less than 20. It's just how this league is set up. It's an offensive league. It's driven by scoring points. And the fact that the Giants struggle to score points, and it's not like they're playing these, disruptive and dominant defenses. The Titans have a solid defense. So do the Panthers. The Cowboys, we see, look like they're going to be one of the better defenses, but there were opportunities for the Giants to score more points this season, and they just haven't. And I think that's indicative of what they're going to be for much of the season. So I don't buy this Giants team continuing to play the kind of football that they've started out this season. The schedule does get a little bit tougher, but not much tougher. They can navigate this schedule if they can continue to play the kind of defense that they've played the first 3 weeks and get a little bit more out of this offense. I don't know how much more they can get out of it, but if they can get a little bit more out of it, this team is going to have a chance to surprise some people, maybe win 8 or 9 games and really compete in the NFC in the NFC to maybe make the playoffs, because as I mentioned, the NFC is not a strong conference. It's wide open. And so you might be able to backdoor your way in at 9-8, in the NFC. When you look around, it's going to be really interesting to see who continues to play good football. It's still really early in the season, so it's really hard to tell what teams are going to do what. But I can tell you this: I didn't expect the Giants to be sitting here as one of the final 3, undefeated teams in the league. But that's where they sat at the time of the game starting tonight. They were 2-0. The Dolphins were 3-0, and the Eagles were 3-0, and those were the only undefeated teams left in football. So now the Giants are 2-1. Solid game offensively. I think that, Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll are giving them an opportunity to succeed with the way that they're calling these games. They're being somewhat conservative in certain spots. But I like that they're not putting too much on Daniel Jones's shoulders in terms of, having to sit back in that pocket too long. There are a lot of RPOs tonight. There are a lot of, little half boots, get them out of the pocket, try to get the ball to somebody out in the flats. Early on in the game, the first 15 that were scripted, there were screens. I thought they got away from that. I thought they could have maybe ran a couple more screens, especially when the Cowboys were bringing pressure. But all in all, I thought it was a solid performance by the Giants. And we'll see if they can keep it up and maybe win a few more games. This schedule is set up. Seattle, obviously the Ravens is going to be tough, but I believe that's over in London. But they've got Seattle on the schedule. Like, there are winnable games, and I don't think these Giants are going to go away quite yet. So we will see what happens. But Cowboys get the win 23-16. They're 2-1. So are the Giants. If you're a Washington fan out there, that's the outcome that you wanted. I told you that on CNN earlier today, that the outcome you wanted was Cowboys winning so that everyone's kind of jumbled up in the division. You don't want 2 3-0 teams and 2 1-2 teams at the bottom. Harder to go catch everyone in the division when they've already got 3 wins. So the Eagles are atop this division at 3-0 by their lonesome, which is fine. If they continue to play good ball, they may run away with this thing. We'll see. I don't think Dallas is going to allow them to do that, but we'll see. Now Washington sitting at the bottom of the division all by their lonesome. We've become accustomed to this, so it's not new. We're used to being under 500 early in the season. We're used to being at the bottom of the division. Usually we have company. Usually the Giants are right there along with us. But the Giants are like, we ain't got time for your ass. You mess around with yourself down there at the bottom of the division. They may join us later. Maybe we'll start to catch up with everyone else. We'll see. Still a lot of football left to be played this season. But looking at the landscape of the NFC East, Eagles are up top. Cowboys and Giants are both 2-1, and Washington is 1-2. So a lot of football left to be played, but I can tell you right now, defense is going to be the calling card of this division, and the only team in the division that can't play quality defense to start is the team that is under 500 at this current juncture in the Washington Commanders. So what it looks like to me is Philadelphia is playing strong defense, Dallas is playing strong defense, and the Giants are playing strong defense. And that's why those 3 teams are over 500. And Washington's defense continues to give up 20+ every single week. And usually find themselves down 20 some odd points by halftime. And that's why they're sitting there at 1-2. So big win for the Cowboys. And, I think what this win does, because Dak, you can't allow Dak to rush himself back, because Dak wants to get back on the field. We saw him in Hard Knocks when he was coming back from the ankle surgery and how they were, and then he was having a shoulder issue and he was trying to push himself, and he didn't want any of the other quarterbacks to get practice reps. He wanted to take all the reps, and they had to save him from himself. We know that he will try to get back on the field as quickly as possible. And so if you're Dallas, what Cooper Rush's 2-0 start to the season as the starting quarterback in relief of Dak Prescott, what that effectively has done in my mind is it allows you to tell Dak, hey, bro, chill. You don't have to rush back. All right. Let's let this thing heal properly. We don't want any setbacks. When you get back in the lineup, we want you to stay there for the remainder of the season. And so Dak's talking about don't count him out for Washington. If I'm Jerry Jones, whether Dak feels like he can play or not, whether the doctors are like, hey, he could use one more week, but if you need him to go this week, he can go. If I'm Jerry Jones, I'm like, hey, Dak, chill. You can come back in week 5. No need to, push the envelope. Cooper Rush is holding us down. You're fine. But, this is a league. Tom Brady didn't want Jimmy Garoppolo getting snaps and getting starts, because at any point, somebody can take your job. Cooper Rush isn't taking Dak Prescott's job, but in Dak's mind, Cooper Rush is 2-0, and if I don't hurry back, he could take my job. So I think with Cooper Rush playing as effectively as he's playing, I think that gives the Cowboys a little bit of flexibility to where they don't have to necessarily rush him back. And we'll see what they decide to do. But it's a really good problem to have if you're Dallas in the interim, waiting for Dak Prescott to get fully healthy. So anyway, let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. All right, we got our first super chat of the night. And if you're out there and you want your comment to be read, you've got two ways to make that happen. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If it is pertinent, we will get to it if we have enough time. But if you want to ensure that your comment is read, super chats are the way to do that. So without any further ado, we get to the comment section and we start off the night with my guy, John Livingston, aka JL Smooth. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, "What up, Lou? What's up, JL Smooth?" Says, "Hope all is well. Brian Daboll is trying hard to run the same offense with Daniel Jones that he had with JA-17. Jones impressed me. He was under pressure all day. They need a wide receiver one bad. Yes, they do. I think that's the one thing that they're missing the most is a playmaker on the outside that can win one-on-one matchups. One of the things the Cowboys did tonight, and I think teams are going to do to the Giants all season long, is they're gonna play man-to-man and they can come after the Giants. Why? Because who's the threat out there? They potentially lost Sterling Shepard tonight, and he's not a speed demon himself, but they potentially lost Sterling Shepard tonight. And you've got David Sills, you've got what's the guy that's returning punts? I forgot his name, that was with the 49ers, that came into the league with the 49ers. Like, these are the guys he's throwing the football to. And we saw this with the Houston Texans. When you make a regime change, when it's a new GM, when it's a new head coach, it's a lot of players that they didn't sign off on, a lot of dead weight that they've got to shed. And in essence, you've got to fill a roster with guys that you probably don't see as long-term solutions, but they're Band-Aids for now. And they got a bunch of Band-Aids on that offense in particular in the skill positions. And so they don't have a Kenny Golladay has been a massive disappointment. He was supposed to be wide receiver one for them, but clearly he is not. Kadarius Toney seems to be always banged up. And so they had the kid that they got in the draft this year as well. He was banged up, and so he didn't play tonight either. And so there wasn't a ton of speed out on the field tonight. It wasn't anybody that scared you. And so Dallas, they felt emboldened. They felt brazen, right? Like, we can go after these dudes. Who's hurting us over the top? Who's gonna make a big play against us? Nobody. None of these Giants receivers. So I totally agree with that assessment. They need a number one receiver badly, and I think that'll be something that they may attack aggressively in the upcoming draft. If not free agency, we'll see. 1/6 Devil Doc, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, "Lou, I saw the game late yesterday, shaking my effing head. First, I was excited. Second, I was pissed. Third, I was disappointed. Fourth, I accepted that we are just not good yet. Question mark. Yeah, there's a lot of emotions because we started off the game well, especially defensively. You know, you had to be proud of the effort that they turned in early in that ball game. I thought they played Hurts well. And again, you know, it's 0-0 after one, and you're feeling like, okay, if the offense can find a way to get this thing in gear, we got a shot. And even after they scored the field goal, it's 3-0. You know, we're still hanging in there. And then Wentz fumbles, they recover, they score the touchdown on the subsequent possession. And that's where things started to snowball after that. They got the momentum. And I told you the Eagles are a front-running team. And once they got that 10-0 lead, they smelt blood in the water. They attacked us, and we weren't able to really get our footing at any point in the game. And when you're trailing 24-0 at halftime, it's pretty much curtains and lights out for you. So, yeah, there were a lot of emotions during and after that football game for sure. Shauna Gang, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, "Hey, Lou, do you think we done? No, I don't think we're done. I'm disappointed in how the beginning of the season is gone. But as I've told you, Ron Rivera doesn't have his team quit on him. He's never had a team quit on him in 12 or 13 years, however long he's been a head coach in this league. He's never had a team quit on him. And I still contend that this is a good schedule for Washington. I still think there are plenty of winnable football games on this schedule for Washington. Now, again, they can't play the way that they've played the last 2 weeks and expect to beat anybody. But there are winnable football games left on this schedule. There are going to be a couple of games that we don't think we have a shot to win, i.e. Green Bay coming to town in a few weeks. You were probably thinking, oh, we're going to lose. We'll see. I don't know what Green Bay is going to be by the time they get to Washington in week 7. I don't know where we're going to be in week 7. But who knows? Chase Young could be back. Brian Robinson could be back. We could be a totally different team. Who knows? I can just tell you this. I still believe in this offense, but the offensive line is a problem. They got to figure that out. But they've shown me enough for me to understand that if Carson Wentz has time, we've got weapons. And obviously, when Brian Robinson comes back, I think that changes the balance of the offense, and it puts this offense in a much better position to attack teams because now you stay balanced with the run. It backs the pass rush off, and now it gives that play action more bite, and it gives you the ability to be able to drive the football down the field because now those pass rushers have to play the run. Right now, teams don't respect our run game. They're pinning their ears back, and they're coming after the quarterback, and they're having a field day. So, no, I don't think we're done. But it's disappointing that we sit here after 3 weeks with the first 3 games being home for Jacksonville, at Detroit, home for Philadelphia. We sit here at 1-2 with the last 2 games being down at halftime by 20 or more points in each of the last 2. That's frustrating. That's frustrating. That's a bitter pill to swallow. But far from over. We got 14 games left. Juan Gotti talking sports. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, looking at it now, Dallas could be just fine if Cooper Rush can keep them afloat and their D keeps balling. No need to rush Dak back. Exactly what I just said. If I were Dallas, I wouldn't entertain bringing him back until at a bare minimum week 5, because if you're just taking the stitches out. Now, they said, honestly, it just really depends on how he can grip the football. Your thumb is what allows you to actually get a firm grip of the ball. And I'd imagine that after a week of having, that out, it'll be a little sore with him, putting it to use a little bit more. But I don't see the need to rush him, especially with Cooper Rush playing the way that he's playing. If I'm Dallas, I tell Dak, hey, we're going to get you out there and get you some reps in practice this week. We're not going to play you, but we're going to start getting you ready, getting that engine revved up. I want you to get a game under your belt before Philadelphia on the road on a Sunday night, which is, if I'm not mistaken, that's week 6. I think they've got the Rams in week 5 after Washington in week 4. So this is the toughest part of their schedule, these first 6 weeks or so. After this, their schedule lightens up considerably. Now, you say that and you look at Jacksonville and they just went and spanked the Chargers, and they may be getting a totally different Jacksonville team than we got in week 1. The Eagles are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. If the Jaguars beat the Eagles or they give them a run for their money, that's a different Jaguars team. It's a different Jaguars team. So we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, I wouldn't rush him back, but that's not my call. If he says, I'm ready to go, and they put him out there in practice and he looks damn good, they're probably going to cut him loose and let him go. So we'll see. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, JL 105.3, writes, falling off the Bills already with them missing their entire secondary, plus 2 starters on the D-line. Oh, and Benford got hurt mid-game. In a weakened Gabe Davis, we still dominated 500 to 200 yards and 90 to 39 in plays, but punt. again, with that kind of domination, how do you only score 19 points is, I think, the biggest question you have to ask yourself. You're putting up those type of statistics. You dominate. And if I remember, I'm watching this game, and I think I heard them say the temperature felt like 120 on the field. Like it was sweltering. You run that many plays, 90 offensive snaps. In that kind of heat, you would think that you would have a distinct advantage and there should be more points scored. I'm just amazed. You ended the first half poorly, with some poor clock management that stopped you from getting points there. Obviously, we saw what happened at the end of the ball game. Allen missed the opportunity on fourth down with a wide open receiver, and he skips it to him. Was that a fourth down or a third down and you had to settle for the field goal? Either way, there were opportunities in this game. I still am kind of flummoxed as to how you didn't come out victorious in this game. And you've given me the stats several times as to supporting that notion that you had no business losing the football game. But got to credit the Dolphins, man. They found a way to get it done. 1-6 Devil Doc. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. 1-6 Devil Doc writes, the only good thing I saw that our D was solid to pretty good yesterday. I have new hope for Jamin. He's growing. Agree with you about Fuller's move to free safety. They're not going to do any of that. So I'm not going to, continue to beat a dead horse. Fuller's going to be out there at, the left cornerback. William Jackson III comes back. He'll be at right cornerback, and Benjamin St. Juste will go back inside to the slot. So they're not going to make any changes. The offensive line is going to be the same 5 guys that we saw last week, more likely than not. They're just going to hope that these guys get better as the season progresses. And so it is what it is. I too felt like Jamin played well, but the film will tell the story. But I felt like, if nothing else, Jamin Davis' speed was finally on display, and Jalen Hurts wanted none of the smoke. And that's why you draft guys like Jamin Davis for guys like Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, who have wheels, who want to threaten you with read option, who want to try to get outside the pocket and extend plays. You put the pressure on them by not allowing them to turn that corner, and Jamin Davis's speed doesn't allow those guys to turn the corner. So that was great to see. John Livingston, my guy JL Smooth, 105.3, writes, Saquon has looked fast and healthy, but Dabo loves to throw. I think he's doing his team a disservice by only giving Saquon 14 carries. Slow that rush down. Give the pill to 26. I can tell you this. Watching Dabo's offense in Buffalo, he kind of already knew what he wanted to do. Like, obviously, he doesn't have Josh Allen, but there have been games where they don't even think about running for the first 20 to 25 snaps, in Buffalo. So I'm not surprised that Saquon isn't getting more opportunities, but you also have to keep this in mind too. That run, they're not run blocking very well either. That they popped one tonight, and he popped one against Tennessee, but he didn't have a great game against Carolina. And despite some of the big runs, you take those runs, and you can't take them away. But the other, if he had 15, I think tonight, 15 runs. Let me see what the statistics were for him. I said them earlier. I think he had 15 carries, 14 for 81, and one of the carries obviously was the 36-yard touchdown. You subtract 36 from 81, and that's what, 55 yards. What is that? 45 yards, excuse me. 45 yards on 13 carries. That's less than you're pushing 3 yards a pop essentially there. So, yeah, I mean, that's not ideal, but to your point, you don't want to put all the onus on Daniel Jones either. You don't want Daniel Jones throwing the football damn near 40 times. That's not a winning recipe either, especially with the weapons that they don't have on offense at the receiver and tight end positions. So I actually like Bellinger, though. The kid from San Diego State looks really good for them. But I don't like. I'll just say this: if you're a Washington fan out there, Daniel Bellinger looks like what I wanted John Bates to look like. That's what Bellinger looks like to me. That's what I was expecting, John Bates to look like. And maybe he does. He just needs more opportunities to catch the football. But anyway, I digress. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Joe Rockhead J writes, I refuse to root for Dallas, thus Dallas won. Look, my wife asked me before this game started, who do you want to win? And I reluctantly said, Dallas. She's like, ugh. And I told you she used to be a Dallas fan, but she can't stand them anymore. And so she's like, well, I'm not rooting for them. I said, and I don't blame you. And tonight wasn't really about rooting. It's not like a Washington playoff berth hinged upon, one of these teams winning tonight. But just for the sake of trying to stay within striking distance, within arm's reach, it made more sense that Dallas won this game. Now, ultimately, the Giants, if they stink, then you would have preferred them to win this game, because if Dallas is going to come to life, you want to give them as many L's as possible. But again, I've said this already. I don't fear any team in this division, but that doesn't mean anything. I've told you this before as well. Being scared isn't a prerequisite to getting your ass beat. You don't have to be scared of someone to get beat up, or vice versa. You cannot be scared, all right, and still get your ass beat down, right? So punks jump up to get beat down. You can jump up, be all brolic, and get your face smacked in. And just because you're not afraid doesn't mean you can't get your ass beat. I wasn't afraid of the Eagles. We got our asses whooped. Okay? So, but I can honestly say, I look at this entire division and I'm like, I feel like in any given game, we could beat anybody in this division. But we're 0-1, and you want the rest of the division to stay within striking distance. Dallas losing would not have promoted that. You would have had 2 3-0 teams. And now you're down 2 games in the division. Now, if you beat Dallas next week and the Giants lose next week, all of a sudden you're in second place. You see what I'm saying? No matter what the Eagles do, you're in second place. So that's kind of how I viewed it. But we'll see if that backfires. If Dallas goes on a run, wins 8 in a row, then rooting for them tonight wasn't the best idea. But just going off of where we are right now, I had to take that opportunity to lean towards the Cowboys. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, Lou, we spent 10 hours venting in the Discord last night. I'm still pissed, and we look like we are miles away from the rest of the division. Yeah, we do look like you know what I had the epiphany of yesterday watching the game is that, and a lot of people are like, well, damn, Louis, it took you this long to figure it out. Now, because I wanted to believe that, everything that they had been preaching, all of the things that we had been, building up towards was going to finally come to a head this year. Year 3, I told you when Ron got the job, this was the year that I was circling. And I didn't know that we were going to be, blessed with the schedule that we got. I didn't know that we were going to finally get a quarterback that was capable in Carson Wentz. I didn't know all these things were going to happen in year 3. I just knew that 3 years after he got the job, it would give him enough time to turn over the roster, get the guys in here that he believed in and have those guys playing, have a little bit of continuity, things of that nature. And that's where we are. And so I'm expecting so much more, and we've gotten less to start this season, and that's frustrating. But to look at the Giants with so much less talent on their team come out and perform the way that they're performing, I just think they're a better coached team than what we have in Washington. I look at the Eagles; they've got a much better roster, but I think they're much better coached than we are. I look at the Cowboys. I can't stand Mike McCarthy. I think he's a joke of a head coach. I don't think they're better coached than we are. I just think they have more talent than we do. But then you look at all the injuries the Cowboys have. If we had Noah Brown, and we've been in this predicament before where we had Dontrell Inman and Isaiah Wright and Steven Sims Jr. and all these guys at receiver, we've been in a position like that. But if we had what the Cowboys had on offense for the last couple of weeks, I doubt we would be 2-0 in that stretch. You put our coaching staff in the position that the Cowboys were just in, we'd be either 0-2, no better than 1-1, but more likely than not, we'd be 0-2. And I think that's where the biggest problem is we're not as well coached as a lot of these teams in the division. And that's what makes me, from a talent perspective, I don't think we're that far off. I do think the Eagles have the best roster in the division right now. I do think Dallas's roster is second in that department, and we're third. But I don't think we're that far off, talent-wise. But I think the biggest discrepancy right now is in the coaching department. And I didn't think that would be the case. When we got Ron, and I looked around the rest of the division, and I'm seeing the Eagles with Nick Sirianni, and I'm looking at the Cowboys with Mike McCarthy and Joe Judge in New York. I'm thinking, oh my God, we got the best coach in the division. And now, a whole year later, after feeling that way, Nick Sirianni has taken a massive step forward. The Cowboys are what they are. Mike McCarthy is what he is. I think they're going to end up promoting their defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, the head coach here shortly. Obviously not in season, but I think after they, do whatever it is they do this year, Dan Quinn's going to ultimately be the head coach of Dallas. And I like Dan Quinn as a head coach as well. I think he's a great motivator, and he had some good teams in Atlanta, man. And they played hard for him. And you see that defense going out there and busting their asses for him. And then I look at the Giants, and I'm looking at Brian Daboll, and he's got nothing to work with. And he had these boys off to a 2-0 start. It wasn't pretty, but it was gritty, and most importantly, it was 2 dubs, and they fought like hell tonight. So I just think we're probably the worst coach team in the division, and that's a bitter pill to swallow, man. It's hard to even say it, but I think that may be where we are. We'll see. Diehard Giants fan. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Diehard Giants fan writes, O-line sucked. Neal needed help and didn't get it. I wasn't the biggest Evan Neal fan going into the draft, but I didn't think he would be this poor, in his career. Now, again, Andrew Thomas didn't start out great in his career. Look at what he's doing for the Giants right now. So it's too early to be. I hope people aren't using the B word with this kid. I hope they're not condemning him, but he was awful tonight. He was absolutely putrid. And to your point, he needed help. And they left him on an island way too often. There were times where the tight end was supposed to be chipping, and they got some lackluster efforts. He should not have been left alone. Like, once he got molested the first time, he should not have been left alone with DeMarcus, with DeMarcus Lawrence. He should not have been left alone with him. There needed to be more parental guidance there. And I put that on the coaching staff. Like, you've got to emphasize, hey, dude, before you get out in your pass route, you got to get a good piece of this kid, man. You cannot allow DeMarcus Lawrence to have one-on-one opportunities against Evan Neal. He's just not there yet. And too often, he got those one-on-one matchups, and he abused him tonight. The O-line wasn't good. They weren't terrible, but they weren't good either. If they were terrible, Michael Parsons would have made an appearance. And, yeah, he ran over Mark Glowinski on that one rush. I mean, that was beautiful. But it wasn't a sack, and he didn't record a sack tonight. And so It could have been a lot worse. Yeah, he was pressured, 20 some odd times, and that's a lot. And that was the, career high for Daniel Jones, but it could have been a lot worse. Yeah, he was sacked 5 times. If Daniel Jones wasn't mobile, it could have been 10 or 11 times tonight. It could have been 12 times tonight. Imagine if he didn't have wheels. So, O-line did suck tonight, but it could have been a lot worse. Spence Kalis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Dallas will sack Carson 200 times. Love you, man. I am not looking forward to Sunday's game. After watching them the first 3 weeks of the season, watching them against Tampa Bay, a formidable offense with Tom Brady, and in week 1, the Bucs didn't look like they looked in week 3. They had a healthy Julio Jones. They had a healthy Mike Evans. Evans is still healthy. He was just suspended against the Packers, but they had Mike Evans. They had Julio Jones. They had Chris Godwin in that first game, and they only scored 19 points. In week 2, the Cowboys abused Joe Burrow, but then who doesn't abuse Joe Burrow, right? Like, that offensive line in Cincinnati is trash. Everybody gets after Burrow, but still, they abused Burrow and ultimately won that football game. I think they sacked him 5 or 6 times. They sacked Daniel Jones 5 times tonight, pressured him, another 19 times or so, hit him 12 times in the game. This Dallas defense is for real. They're ferocious. They're aggressive. They attack. They blitz. They can get pressure with 4. And as we saw this past week against Philadelphia, we don't handle 4 well. So what happens when the number becomes 6? I shudder to think what's going to happen when Micah Parsons gets an opportunity to go one-on-one with one of our guards or our center or our tackles who can't seem to block guys with a little bit of speed around the corner. So, yeah, I'm not looking forward to the upcoming game against Dallas. We don't adjust well, and so they're going to script 15 plays to start the game off. Dallas is going to sack us 3 times in those 15 plays. They're not going to make any adjustments, and the Cowboys, they're another one of these teams that have struggled to score to start the season off. Dallas scored 3 points in their first game. Dallas scored 20 points in week 2. Dallas scores 23 in week 3. They're not scoring a boatload of points, but I'd venture to say that next week would be the week that Dallas decided, let's try to score 30 with Cooper Rush in the lineup. And that'd be the game they'd do it. They'd be up 17-0 at halftime, and they'd cruise to a 30-13 victory or something along those lines. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm low on confidence in the coaching staff right now. I actually think the players that they have are really solid. I don't believe in the coaching staff at this point. So we'll see. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, I'm tired of these slow starts. Sick of Ron's trash plan, and I'm tired of looking at these high school defenses of ours. Our O-line is Bush, all scrubs. I mean, that's what it felt like watching the game yesterday. So, Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I'll take Dak. Unexpected grip / pain, fumble, interception. You got to get to him first. You're asking for things that happen that we don't create as a defense. We haven't hit a quarterback since week 1, it feels like. I mean, how many times did we hit Jared Goff? I'm actually interested to see. I know Daron Payne, had some good rushes in that game, had a sack in that game, but that's not what we're about, hitting quarterbacks. So let's see how many times we hit Trevor Lawrence in week 1. We hit Trevor Lawrence in week 1 10 times. Sacked him twice. Okay. Week 2, Jared Goff. We sacked Goff 3 times, actually. I didn't think we had that many sacks. But, yeah, Jamin had the one. I remember now. Jamin had the one on the first possession. Daron had the one. I didn't remember James Smith-Williams getting a sack. But We hit him 10 times. So not bad. That wasn't bad. And then this week against Hurts, this was pretty bad. We didn't hit him enough. I think we sacked him once. F.A. Obata, if I'm not mistaken, got the only sack of the game on Jalen Hurts. We sacked him. Oh, it says we sacked him 3 times. Oh, that's right, because on plays where he tried to scramble, he was behind the line of scrimmage, and Jamin Davis either ran him out of bounds or he slid. And being that he was the closest guy to Jalen Hurts when he slid, he gets credited for the sack. So Jamin Davis actually had 2 sacks in the game. We hit Jalen Hurts 6 times, which isn't nearly enough. But the 3 sacks are misleading, but I mean, they count as sacks, so I'm not going to take it away from the defense. But that's not what we do. We don't get pressure on the quarterback. We don't hit him a ton. I can't see Dak playing. I'd take my chances with Cooper Rush, but I mean, whatever the case may be, Dallas is going to have guys back. They're going to get Michael Gallup back. They're going to probably have Dalton Schultz back next week. They're going to be getting closer and closer. I don't know where James Washington is in his development, but he's coming along. They're getting healthier, and at some point, all these guys are going to be back. And it may be this week. Dak might be back. Gallup might be back. Dalton Schultz might be back, all in week 4 for Washington. And you know what? I'm not mad if that happens, because I'm tired of ducking and running from teams and wanting to take advantage of this, that, and look, I'll take it any way I can get it. You know, if Dak doesn't play and we find a way to win, so be it. But I would really prefer to beat Dak. You know, I'm tired of losing to Dak Prescott, tired of the impeccable record he has against us, and I'd like to knock him off again. But, you know, we need a win. So whatever gives us the best chance to win, if that's Cooper Rush, and I think it is Cooper Rush, let me get Cooper Rush's ass next week. That's what I would prefer. Whoever gives us the best chance to have a win, and I think that would be Cooper Rush. Spence Kalis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, can the O-line be fixed with play calling or plus talent? Yeah, it can be fixed. But the play calling has to be in sync. And Brian Robinson coming back may help, because our line is better equipped this year to run it than they have been in past years with the guys that they have at guard. Those guys are more run blockers than they are pass protectors. And we've seen that because they don't move laterally well. So you get Brian Robinson back, he adds a little bit more balance to the offense. It may change the way teams try to attack us up front, slow down the rush a little bit. Then, you know, Scott may be able to get into a better rhythm as a play caller. You know, these things could take place, but I'm not banking on anything happening right now. I'm just going to kind of let it play itself out and see what happens. That's kind of where I'm at with my process now, is I'm just taking a wait and see approach. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, love what you do for us, Lou, but we got pumped up for this hot garbage. Ron can go to hell and try selling his plan to the devil. Hashtag tired of this BS. Look, we got hyped up, and somebody said something to me today, and I'm going to go fact check this, but I'm pretty sure that they're right about this. And he said, in year 3 in Carolina, and, you know, Ron has spoken about year 3 in Carolina a million times here, and it's not the same because his first year in Carolina featured, you know, Cam Newton as a rookie. And so he had 3 years of Newton to develop him, to get him where he needed to be, to get the roster where he needed to be, and they got to grow together. And by year 3, they were ready to take off. That's not what we have here. Carson Wentz just got here this year. We're still bringing in parts that are just getting here this year. That said, somebody hit me up and was like, hey, Ron started 1-3 in Carolina in year 3. They were ready to run him out of town because he had 2 losing seasons his first 2 years. And then they ended up going 12-4 that year. Started off 1-3, ended up 12-4. How they managed to do that, that person said, I don't know, but maybe it'd be interesting to look back and see. I may do that. I may take a look at that. But that's not – the schedule is set up for that to happen here, but that's not what I see right now. Because I bet you that offense in Carolina, whether they were running it a ton or whatever the case, they had a mobile quarterback that could help that offensive line out if it wasn't blocking at a high level. But that offensive line was probably pretty decent. They had Jordan Gross probably in his year 3, and they probably had a really solid, formidable offensive line. That's not what we have in Washington right now. So we'll see. But no, this is not what we signed up for. None of us anticipated this. I talked about it in the CNN today that the one thing I thought I could count on was the offensive line. Clearly that has not been the case to this point. So, what can you do? Spence Khalees, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, maybe character means little. We need dogs. Well, you need guys with good character. We've went down that road before with Sua Cravens and Darius Guice. You don't want to go down that road again, but we do need dogs. And like I said, I've said this before, you don't have to get bad dudes to get dogs on your team. You just need football players with that dog mentality, and we don't have that. So most of the guys in the league are good dudes, man. They're good human beings off the field, and they're just badass football players and competitors. That's what we need. We just don't have enough dudes that want to make plays. We got a lot of dudes that want to do their job, but we don't have a lot of dudes that want to go above what they're being asked to do and go make a play. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Joe Rockhead J writes, what's good, Lou? It's good with you, Joe Rockhead J. The slow start is ye old narrative. Is a plot twist realistic, or are we in syndication? We're in syndication right now. We've seen these episodes before. We've seen these plenty of times. I'm hoping, and it's still early, right? But remember, last year we went 2-2, and then we lost 4 straight. So we've been here before. Last year, instead of it being, win one, lose one, it was lose one, win one, lose one, win one. This year it might be win one, lose one, win one, lose one. And we may ultimately end up where we were a season ago after 4 weeks, which is 2-2. But what you do thereafter is going to be key. But we got to get there first. This thing could easily spiral out of control, and we could look up and at the end of week 6 and we're 1-5. Because it's Dallas, then it's Tennessee, and then it's Chicago on a Thursday night. And that's when you'll have a chance to recalibrate after that week 6 Thursday night game, because it's a quick turnaround, short week. You get a mini bye, a pseudo bye after that game, and that'll give us a chance to hit the reset button. But what happens if you're hitting the reset button and you're 1-5? I hope we're not in that predicament, but I don't have a ton of faith right now. So yeah, we're in syndication, man. We've seen these episodes before. They got to change the narrative. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, let's chill. Let's settle down. That's what I want to do. Just me, you, and Wentz and Ron. I'm so happy to have you here, standing right by my side. And I've been trying to stand right by Ron's side, but he's making it tough on me, man. Making it real tough. You get it, though, Metaphor. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, Ron said they have it all figured out. He's a lost clown, same-ish year in, year out. He's all cap. The lies they keep feeding us. Come on, man. Enough. The thing that made me laugh last night watching the post-game presser was when Ron said, we got our young guys out there and they're taking lumps, but eventually we're going to start giving them out. Okay, Ron. Okay, tough guy. Okay. We'll see about that. I will say this, and I've said it already, and people have called me, foolish for saying it. I don't care. At some point, we're going to win 4 in a row. We've done it the first 2 years with Ron here, and this schedule suggests that there will be an opportunity for 4 in a row at some point this season. And I've said this as well. Every time I make that statement, I always say this. But where are we coming from when we win 4 in a row, when we win 3 in a row, whatever that streak is this season? Where is that streak coming from? Are we down 3 or 4 in the loss column? Are we at 500? You know, where do we sit when we finally run into that win streak? When we get hot and we start to come together and Ron starts yelling in the locker room, nobody dictates to us. When he say, all we need is what we got in this room, man. That's all we need. We got everything we need in this room. When he starts having those post-game, rants, are we 2-6? Are we 1-5? Are we 3-6? Are we 3-5? What are we? That's the question. It's coming. Just, is it going to be too little, too late? We'll see. All right. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, oh, and who the F is Wild Goose, Lou? I told y'all about Rashad Wild Goose. Come on, Lou. Ron don't have the answers. Sway. I've already said, the minute that we cut Danny Johnson and Corn Elder, they needed to go get veterans. Or at least a veteran. And they went out and got, Castro Fields and Rashad Wild Goose. I said, uh-oh. We could be in some trouble. And wouldn't you know it, William Jackson III, late scratch. In goes Rashad Wild Goose. And there goes the neighborhood. And you can see from the very first defensive snap, the Eagles were on a wild goose chase. And they found him over and over and over again. John Cedillo, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, hey, Lou, what's up, John? Says, good win tonight. CR played well. Cooper Rush, for those of you keeping score at home. DJ running around on the D is concerning and may need MP to split time spying JH versus Philly. Michael Parsons, for those of you, again, keeping score at home. DJ, Daniel Jones, for those of you keeping score at home once again. I thought that tonight they had the safety Donovan Wilson spying Daniel Jones on specific plays. There was a late play, the one that he had the intentional grounding on. Jones rolls out to his left, and Donovan Wilson is spying him, and he takes off. And ultimately, he gets to him, forces the intentional grounding. They may do a little bit of that with Jalen Hurts, too. I think that you're going to have to be able to contain him. You may have to be a little bit more careful, especially if you're going to try to blitz and be aggressive against Philadelphia. You're probably going to have to be a little bit more careful because they got weapons. They got A.J. Brown. They got Devontae Smith. They got Quez Watkins. They got dudes to get the rock to. So you can't be reckless and blitzing 6 and 7 dudes and just playing man across the board. I don't think you're built that way. So you may see a little bit more zone. You may see a little bit of spy action. Daniel Jones's legs were a problem, but that's because you were over aggressive, and you could afford to do that tonight because you didn't respect what they were putting on the field from a skill position standpoint. You weren't afraid of the receivers that they had on the football field. So you felt like you could be over aggressive. And yeah, it helped Daniel Jones find some seams and be able to pick up some yards on the ground. But I think against the Eagles, you'll be a little bit less aggressive, a little bit more apprehensive to bring as much pressure. And I think it will allow you to be a little bit more disciplined when it comes to slowing down Jalen Hurts' legs. So we'll see. I don't think you're going to have to worry about that as much. Shadows, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, who writes, are the Eagles fans overhyping their team? I think there is a little bit of that, but they have every right to feel really confident about what they're doing right I still think that they have some issues offensively. I think their defense is solid. I don't think it's great, but for what they've done to start this season off, for the roster that they've assembled, frontline talent-wise, as long as they're able to stay relatively healthy, they got a chance to be dangerous, man. They put together one hell of a roster. I've already said that, to me, their roster is second to only the Buffalo Bills in the league, and the Bills are dropping like flies over there. So, with the Eagles staying relatively healthy, they could have the best roster in football, this season. And if I were a fan, I'd be talking my shit. I know that much. I'd be hyping up my squad. So are they overhyping them? Maybe, but they have every right to feel the way that they feel right now. Every right. They're one of 2 undefeated teams. They've been dominant. They've scored 24 points in each of their first 3 games in the first half. Nobody else is doing that in the league right now. So they have every right, and people are using Jalen Hurts and MVP in the same sentence repeatedly. So, yeah, they're feeling really good about themselves right now. So, are they overhyping their team? Maybe, to a degree, maybe, but I would be doing the same thing. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, someone said that the problem with our defense is that it's difficult to learn and difficult to execute, but it's easy to attack. Agree or a later show? I can't speak to the difficulty of the defense. It doesn't seem like it's super complex, but defense can be a little complex. There's a lot that goes into defense, from splits to, technique, what you're trying to take away. There's a lot of nuances to defense. When they go in motion, it changes the look because now you go from a 3-by-1 to a 2-by-2, and it changes your responsibility on the coverage. There's a lot that goes into playing defense. It's not as simple as Madden and you seeing cloud coverage and this guy's got this red area here, this guy's got this blue area, and this guy's got this yellow area. It's not as cut and dry as it may appear. Like there's definitely some nuance to playing defense. So I can't speak to the difficulty of learning the defense and executing it. What I can say is, so far, the guys have been relatively competitive defensively, and they've been, for the most part, in the right spot. Obviously, the Lions game in particular, there are a lot of busted coverages, guys running wide open, that sort of thing. That's frustrating to see, but for the most part, against the Eagles, and even in week 1 against Jacksonville, guys were in the picture. Guys were there. Guys had opportunities to make plays on the football. So I can't really, speak to that one. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add on that one yet. William Lee, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I think I just saw Wentz get sacked again. Well, I wouldn't be shocked if you did. 9 is a big number, man. So it's enough to go around. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JL Smooth, writes, Lou, all I know, we all call injuries an excuse, but at some point they aren't. Credit the Dolphins. Still think we're a much better team, but we were down 11 starters, 7 on D, 4 on the O-line. So frustrating. I've talked about this before. Nobody cares about your injuries. Everyone's dealing with injuries, some teams more than others. But there is a point where injuries or, in our case last year, COVID, that's not an excuse. It's a reason. But again, nobody really wants to hear that. Try as you might, but someone's always going to say no excuses, right? And so it is what it is. At the end of the day, the players that were out of the lineup, it'd be one thing if you didn't go out and execute. You had 500 yards of offense with four guys out on offense. You gave up 200 yards of offense with 7 defensive starters out of the game. It's not like you had 90 offensive snaps to their 39. It's not like you suffered from an execution and scoring, execution and, moving the ball down the field and getting stops standpoint on the field. You just didn't get it done when it mattered most on third downs, on fourth downs, in the red zone. You didn't get it done when it mattered most. But again, you got to credit the Dolphins for that too. They got opportunities. They found the end zone. You got opportunities. You didn't find the end zone. Got to give them credit for that. William Lee, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. William Lee writes, Wentz looks like Tyson in the late rounds, trying to land one big punch. I thought there was a stretch of the game, specifically in the first half, in the second quarter, where I thought he was pressing and he was trying to get it all back with one throw, like he did against Jacksonville with the throw to Terry. I felt like he was trying to do that, and we didn't need him to do that. That wasn't going to work with the way he was being protected or lack thereof. And so I just needed him to be smarter with the football, get rid of it faster. If there were outlets, take it. But he looked shell-shocked, and he looked like a guy that wanted to be aggressive and push it down the field. And maybe he ignored some opportunities to get rid of the football. But at the end of the day, everybody's got to be better. Wentz has to be better. The offensive line has to be better. Scott Turner has to be better. Ron Rivera has to be better. All in all, these guys have to be better, period. Take command for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I'm tired of this team. Season isn't over, though. It could definitely wear on you, I talked about, having my wine, ready for me. Well, I don't have that option, that luxury anymore. Come October 1st, I'm not drinking until Thanksgiving. I do this every year. I go on a little bit of a fast, if you will, from certain things, alcohol being one of them. And so I can't, take the edge off with a little bit of wine or a drink. This team is very frustrating because they don't, like I've said, you guys are therapy for me, but even when I'm done with the video and I'm watching Sunday Night Football, when we lose, it sucks. And I don't enjoy, the Sunday night game or the rest of the games during the week that I'm watching to see all the games. I don't enjoy them as much as when we win. Everything is better when we win. But at the same time, I've gotten better at not allowing this team to really affect me. But every now and again, I was in the kitchen with my wife right before the Sunday night game started, and I was like, why do we do this? Why do we suck? Why? Like, it wasn't even close. She's like, I know, babe. It's frustrating. She sat right there and watched the entire, and she never watches the whole game. She just watched, bits and pieces of it. She sat there and watched pretty much the entire game with me. And she was like, I know, babe. It's just, I'm like, it's just frustrating. And she's like, I know. It just makes me mad sometimes, because you want better, man. You want better. We deserve better. We've talked about this before, though. We deserve better. Soul Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Louie, I bet my friend $100 we'll have over 8 wins. I thought it was free money. Now I'm scared. I mean, that's the equivalent of the Vegas bet. At one point, I think the number was 7.5. win total for the season, and you lay down $100 on that, I still think you're going to get your money. You bet your friend that you will have over 8 wins. I don't know if I would have taken that bet. 7.5 meant all you had to do was win 8. I'm like, oh, that's free money. Over 8 means you have to win 9 games. There's no such thing as 8.5 wins in the NFL. I mean, technically, if you get a tie, I guess there is, but you'd have to win 9 games. Before the season started, that was, to me, I told you, anything less than 10 wins would be uncivilized, and I would consider it a failure of a season. That's just my opinion. I've heard people say 9 wins would be a successful season for Ron Rivera and company this year. I don't believe that. I can't co-sign that. I don't think that to me would constitute as a successful season. I think you got to win 10 games or more this year. So, with that said, they could win 9 games, man. Like, the schedule that we have is, again, it's set up for us to. There are games there to be won. Like, the Titans aren't great this year, but they can run the football. I like the way we stopped the run against Philadelphia, but we're going to have to do that against teams whose main objective is to run the football. Like the Eagles, they were like, hey, we can run it. That's cool, but we don't mind throwing it against y'all. The Titans are like, nah, we going to run this bitch down your throat. We don't have any, other recourse. We have to run the football. There are like 4 or 5 of those teams on our schedule where they have to run the football to be successful. How do we handle those teams? The Clevelands, the Tennessees, the Minnesotas, the teams that have to run the football in order to have their offense work. We'll see. We got all those. Indianapolis is another one of those teams. We got all these teams on the schedule. We'll see how we handle them. Don't be scared, but just know you could easily lose your $100. But don't be scared yet. Don't be scared yet. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, real talk, Lou. Tell me, what do you think top 5 will do against Dallas? Will he be running for his life? Will he light it up? Can we run the rock? Nothing that I've seen from this team the last 2 weeks indicates anybody lighting anything up other than our quarterback in our offensive line getting lit up. So as far as I'm concerned, he'll be in the same predicament that he's been in the last 2, first halves of games, where he's running for his life. He's getting sacked. We're 3 and out. We got 50 yards of total offense at halftime, while the other team has 250 or pushing 300. That's what I'm expecting until they show me otherwise. So yeah, I think your guy, top 5, as you like to call him, I think he's going to be top 5 in the league getting sacked. Probably another 5 or 6 sacks for Dallas next week. I think they said Dallas is leading the league in sacks. That's not what you want to hear when you just gave up 9 sacks to the Philadelphia Eagles, 7 of which were just 4-man rushes. That's not what you want to hear. That's coming, that you're going to their building to face in week 4, having given up what we've given up to start the season off. So, yeah. I don't think we're going to run it effectively against Dallas either. But, we'll see. I didn't expect to run it effectively against Philadelphia. And I thought, our first down runs were exceptional. It was the runs thereafter that weren't all that great. John Livingston, thank you for a super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, 105.3 JL Smooth writes, probably a podcast topic, but what do you think about the Dolphins putting Tua back in the game after he clearly spaghetti-legged, and they called it a back injury? I hate the Dolphins so much, way more than the Jets and Pats. This is crazy because you didn't used to hate the Dolphins more than you hated the Patriots. This became a thing recently. I think you hate the Dolphins much more than the Jets and Pats right now because you see them as more of a threat. Before it was, I can't stand Brady. Oh my God, I just want to beat the Patriots so bad because they were the Don Dada in the division. Now that the Patriots are no longer a real threat, you see the Dolphins as being the central threat. That's, I think, why a lot of your frustration, is angled towards them. That said, I think that whole situation is interesting. I never like to really have, a strong opinion on another man's injury because I don't know what he's going through. I can't tell somebody they need to come back in the game. If they tell me they've got a concussion, they've got a concussion. If somebody says I can play, and they passed the baseline test, that's what it's all about. If they took him in the tent and they gave him a baseline test and he passed it, then what are you to do? They had him have on this massive apparatus after the game. They made it seem like it truly was his back. I don't know if that's a part of the game that they're playing. And he really did have some issues cognitively, but he was able to shake the cobwebs, come back in and play and lead his team to victory. Whatever the case may be, I'm just going to go off of what they say. They say that he's passed all of the tests that they've given him. He's not in. I saw something today where head coach Mike McDaniel says he's not in the concussion protocol. It's more of a back and neck issue. It's not, anything with the, brain related. And so if that's what they say, if that's what they're rolling with, that's what I'm rolling with. I can't tell them what it is or what it isn't. So he clearly looked like a dude that was concussed, that got his bell rung. But you don't have to be concussed to, have your legs be spaghetti. Your equilibrium gets knocked off. And that's what happens. I've had times where my equilibrium wasn't off, but I've sat down in an awkward position for long enough to where my leg has gone completely numb. It's sleep. The blood flow wasn't going. And so my shit's numb. You get up and you try to take a step and, your shit is like, bro, I got nothing for you right now. I have no blood flow going on right now. So I'm just trying to wake up. And you try to take a step and you'll look like somebody just rocked your ass. So, I mean, it could have been anything. I think it was more along the line. And first of all, there are people that are saying that was a dirty hit by Matt Milano. I mean, there's different layers to that play. It was late and it was dirty and it was this and it was that. So at the end of the day, I don't have a big problem with them putting him back in the game. But, did they follow the protocol correctly? I can't say. I can't say, but he came in and got the job done. Hats off to them. It is what it is, Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Duncan writes, we're taking the Jags too lightly, and I fear by next Sunday night, the NFC East will be tight again. It's a trap game. That is a trap game. I don't know if you're taking the Jaguars too lightly or not. I think if you're an Eagles fan, with what I've been hearing from the fan base, they're overlooking the Jags. They're looking past the Jags. They're looking at Arizona already. I think you got Arizona in week 5 and then Dallas in week 6, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think in their minds, they're thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna smoke Jacksonville. They don't want it with us. And that's a mistake. If you're overlooking the Jaguars, they've won 2 in a row. They're playing with confidence. Doug Peterson knows your squad. I wouldn't do that if I were you. So I think you're on to something, Duncan. But if you play your game, you're going to have a chance to beat Jacksonville. But don't sleep on them. Don't discredit them. Don't make it seem as if their 2 wins were fluky. Because these guys are starting to play with an abundance of confidence. So I wouldn't take them lightly. So I think you're on to something there, Duncan. 1-6 Devil Doc, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, are we taking the heated benches to Big D? Laughing my ass off. I'm pretty sure we'll be leaving those at home. I think those were one and done at the end of the season. That didn't work well. First of all, those benches said Washington football team. We're now the Commanders. So clearly we're not taking those particular benches, but I don't think they'll be taking the heated benches with them anymore after the debacle that was the end of last season. They tried to troll, and it actually backfired in their face. So I think that it's pretty safe assumption that we'll be leaving those home. And it's not cold yet. I just found that funny that we needed to take heated benches to Dallas. That's an indoor stadium. All Right. Man. Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I got Big Money Sonny writes 9 sacks, 8 points. Let that sink in, Lou. I haven't looked at it that way. I have yet to look at it in that manner, but that makes it even worse when you think about it that way. You gave up more sacks than you scored points in the game. I mean, how pathetic. One of my favorite movies is Dumb and Dumber. And at the beginning of the movie, they both get fired from their jobs. But Lloyd decides that he's going to mock Harry after Harry tells him he got fired from the dog grooming job. And he says, "Oh my God, you're one pathetic loser." No offense. And he's like, "None taken." And that's kind of how I feel when you tell me we got 9 sacks, right? We gave up 9 sacks and we scored 8 points. Oh my God, we're one pathetic loser. No offense. I hope they don't take any. But yikes. That is insane. The other team got more sacks than you have points in the game. That's pretty hard to do, man. Pretty hard to do. Atomic Ant. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Atomic Ant writes, now see the NFC East for 3 weeks. Who has the best defense, offense, ranking them 1 to 4? I think the Cowboys have the best defense. I think the Eagles have the second best defense. Giants have the third best defense. We have the worst defense. Offensively, Eagles have the best offense right now. That's subject to change, but right now the Eagles have the best offense, and it's not really close right now in the division. Hell, they're the only team in the division that can score more than 24 points in a game. Because, I mean, the Cowboys haven't scored 24 points in a game this season yet. The Giants haven't scored 24 points in a game this season yet. We've only done it more than once this season. Week 1 against Jacksonville. And the Eagles are doing that in the first half of every game. So it's not even close. They're the number 1 offense in the division right now. Dallas, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I would put us 2 if we could protect, but we can't. So it's hard for me to fix my lips to put us at number 2 right now, because you can't give up 9 sacks and score 8 points and want anybody to listen to you talk about your team's offense is the second best in the division. So I guess I'd have to give it to Dallas, even though their offense isn't really all that great right now. But they're going to get some guys back. They've been doing a lot with a little. So I'll put Dallas at 2. We're at 3, and the Giants are at 4 offensively. But if we could protect, we'd go to number 2. In the division offensively. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Metaphor, who writes, we got guns in ish, but no Kevlar vests. O-line. I mean, it sucks when you got guns and shit, right? You got weapons, but other teams have weapons too. And like you said, if you don't have a vest on, if you don't have a way to avoid bullets, you're going to get wet up. And we got wet up pretty good on Sunday against the Eagles, man. You can have all the guns you want, but if you don't have time to shoot them, what difference does it make? You know, I liken it to going paintball, going paintballing. I had a buddy that got into it really heavy, and we would go paintballing. And, we went all together the very first time, and we used all stock stuff, the stuff that they provide you with when you go. And he's got this addictive personality. So when he likes something, he goes all in. So the next time we went, he's got full regalia. He's got the little helmet that it's got the sliding surface so that when his helmet gets hit with a paintball, it won't explode. It'll skip off of it. He's got the goggles. He's got the full camo. But most importantly, he's got this rapid fire gun. He hits the trigger once and like 3 pellets come out. Like it's just quick, rapid fire. And I've got this, and it's quiet. I've got the loud stock one shot. Right? I like to think that I have better aim than him, but it doesn't matter if I'm stuck behind a car, because every time I peek my head out from around the car, he pulls the trigger once, and so now I got to go back behind the car, and I can't even get a shot off. What difference does it make if I have better aim? I got all this ammunition sitting right here to reload. I got weapons, but I can't even get a shot off. What difference does it make? It's kind of where we are right now. Take command for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, do we want Dallas? It's not looking like it. You won't hear that shit come out of my mouth this week. I learned my lesson from that last year. You know, when we were chanting, we want Dallas, and they came to Washington and smacked us around and called us Susie. You won't hear that out of my mouth this week, because I don't want Dallas. But we'll see what happens. Clapping Dallas cheeks. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, who writes. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Did you see who they named player of the game? No, I did not see who they named player of the game. I saw at the very end of the game that there was a little, dust up at the end of the game, but I didn't see who they named. Once the game's over, I turn it off. So I never stick around. So I can never tell you who the player of the game is, this, that, or that. I can never tell you any of that stuff. But I know it's you, Luck. And guess what? You're not going to get me. So good try, though. But I'm on high alert now. So Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. And you got to come better than who they picked as the player of the game. Who gives a shit about who's the player of the game? Okay? Nobody cares about that. Anyway, do they even pick players of the game? Do they even do that? I know they do it on Sunday night. I don't think they do that on Monday night, do they? Maybe they do. I don't stick around for it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Joe Rockhead J writes, irony. 2 years ago, we sacked Wentz 8 times. He switches teams and gets sacked 9 times. Poor fella. It's irony, but it also may be indicative of that's who Carson Wentz is, And there's been a lot of that over the last 48 hours. Like, it's not a coincidence that he got sacked 8 times versus Washington back in 2020, and now it comes full circle and he gets sacked 9 times. That's part of Carson Wentz's problem is he doesn't hit the check down, he doesn't make quick enough decisions. But I knew that already. We knew that when we signed him, which is why the offensive line being fortified was such a big deal. And that's not something we've struggled with. I've said this. Our rush offense may have not have been the greatest, and we may not have been opening up massive holes in the run game, and we may not have been establishing a new line of scrimmage as a team running the football. But what we have done effectively over the last 2 or 3 years is pass protect. So that's the one thing that I was banking on that we'd be able to continue to do. But clearly that hasn't been the case to this point. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Joe Rockhead might be on to something. When Rex got fired in Buffalo, he said the personnel couldn't run his defense because it was too complicated. Some schemes don't work with certain personnel, gotta adapt. There is a little bit of that. I think the best coaches are malleable meaning they adapt to the personnel that they have. If you had it your way, if coaches had it their way, you would strip the roster down to its core, keep the guys that are absolutely essential, the guys that you say, hey, these are ballers, these are blue chip players, we can't move on from them. But you'd strip it down to its fundamental core, and you'd build it back up in the image of the way you want it to look, with players that fit what you want to do schematically. That's not always the case. You get a guy and he's not what you thought, or you get a guy and you had expectations of him being able to do this, that, and the third, and then you realize he's a little limited here. And so you as a coach have to adapt to what it is you have. I always feel like the guys that have a scheme and force you to fit into their scheme aren't the best coaches. I always feel like the guys that are the best coaches are the ones that take the talent that they have and figure out what's the best way to utilize the talent that you have. You've got to have some sort of philosophy. I'm not saying that you just scrap what you do best in order to acquiesce to the players that you have, but there should be this happy medium. There should be a blending of the two, where this is your scheme. This is what we want to go out and execute and do on a week-to-week basis. But then there also has to be this awareness that, hey, some of our guys are limited in this aspect. So let's not put them in these positions that often. You may have to put them in a position or two that they're uncomfortable in, but you don't want to make that a habit. And so, for instance, if you're going to go out and you're going to go sign William Jackson III, knowing he's a man-to-man corner, you can't be upset when he comes in and doesn't play zone well, or doesn't understand the concepts or where he's supposed to be. You can't be upset when that happens, because when you signed him, you knew what you were signing up for. He was a man-to-man press cover corner. So it could be scheme, but at some point you have to adapt to the parts that you have. Metaphor, thank you for Super Chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Metaphor writes, our W streaks coincide with your wine fast. Cold turkey? I mean, I always start at the beginning of October because I'm going to pig out. You guys know that. You've seen my spread in November for Thanksgiving. And so I hold no punches come Thanksgiving. And because of that, I put myself in a position to where I knock off some pounds. I get into great shape. And this time around, though, I'm not only going to knock off pounds and get into great shape, I'm going to stay in shape. I'm going to stay in shape this time around. That's the plan. But I always knock off a few pounds because I know I'm going to put it right back on and probably then some. Because I'm eating apple pie and bullshit for breakfast, and I don't care. I don't care. So I don't know. Do these streaks, coincide with me going cold turkey? I don't think so, because the 4-game winning streak happened last year in, I want to say, early to mid-November into December, if I'm not mistaken, because we beat the Raiders, which was the last win of our winning streak, and I was in the hospital and the twins were about to be born, and that was in December. So I was already off of the fast by then. So I don't think they coincide with one another, but we'll see. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JL Smooth 105.3, JL Smooth writes, Lou, the rules state if clear concussion symptoms are exhibited on the field, the player is not allowed to come back in the game. Multiple doctors tweeted the way he hit his head, it was obvious. I mean, I saw the way he hit his head. It looked like that was the reason he got up and was jelly-legged. But again, we can't say for sure. You know, we can't say for sure what the situation was. And I can tell you this. The NFL has set it up where independent neurologists are there. This isn't the Dolphins team doctors sending him back into the game. So it's not like the Dolphins, themselves cheated. If the independent doctor said, oh, he's good to go, that's how he got back into the game. He didn't get back into the game because the doctors for the Miami Dolphins decided that he was good to go and ready to roll. So again, it all falls back to the NFL because they have an independent doctor that is there for the specific purpose of making sure players don't go back into the game that aren't supposed to be there. And I'm guessing he went in the blue tent. He passed the baseline test. And the neurologist said, hey, he's fine. If everything else checks out, he can go back in the game. That's my guess. Again, I don't think anything's going to come of the situation. I think there'll be a small investigation. The NFL will say, look, nothing here, none of our findings, shows us that he had a concussion. The independent neurologist cleared him. What do you want us to do? That's how I think it's going to end up going. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, 105.3 JL Smooth writes, Lou, I've always hated the Dolphins fans the most. Always. Okay, that's new on me. Thought you hated the Patriots, and you used to always tell me you hated Tom Brady. But you said the fans. So he says they haven't beaten us in almost 4 years. We are 14-5 in the last 19, and they act like they won the East already. Man, child, please. Well, you get that from fan bases. And look, the Dolphins have a rich history. They were one of the best teams of the 70s. Dan Marino had them playing good ball in the 80s into the 90s. And they've had a really rough period here. I mean, they've been through a lot of quarterbacks, Jay Fiedler, Culpepper was there for a little taste. They've been through a boatload of quarterbacks, man. It's been rough, right? And we can keep going on and on and on, talking about the guys that have, played the quarterback position for them. And so it's been rough, but now they feel like they're up, they've got a chance. This ain't Chad Pennington, They feel like they got a chance with the weapons that they've assembled. And so, yeah, they're talking trash because they're feeling good about their team. And what you have to understand is y'all own them. So if y'all – and they got you this time, and it's going to happen. That's what family business is all about. You're not going to win every single game against family members, even when you feel like you're better than them, which obviously you clearly feel like you're the better team. And I believe you too, and I feel the same way that you do. I think you guys are better than the Dolphins, but they got the win. So right now there's nothing you can say. They won the game, right? But you have a chance, and you've already said we'll see them in December. But guess what? You can still do all of the talking by going out and winning the division. Like, you still have a chance to say, man, shut up to every single Dolphins fan by still winning the division. They got to come to Buffalo in December, taking care of business there. And when it's all said and done, you're 12-5 or you're 13-4, and they're 11-6 or they're 10-7, and you're like, yeah, y'all still not on our level. So you got a chance to get the last laugh. Atomic Ant, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Atomic Ant, who writes, what's Cole Turner's deal? So he missed so much time with his injury in camp that it allowed Amani Rodgers to not only be a little bit further along in the playbook than Cole Turner was, but it also allowed Amani Rodgers to establish a vital and key role on special teams. And so they're just way more comfortable with Amani Rodgers right now on special teams. And this is what you have to understand. Cole Turner was supposed to be this difference maker as a pass catcher, at the tight end position. Well, they don't feel like he is, at that point yet to where we can't keep him off the field. There may be a time that comes where they look at him and they say, hey, he's ready. And we really feel like he can impact this offense. We got to give him a chance. But right now, the special teams prowess coupled with the knowledge of the playbook and just their comfort in Amani Rodgers is greater than that of any offensive contribution Cole Turner could provide this team at this current moment. So he's not going to be active until he shows them, and I don't know how that's going to take place, until he shows them or an opportunity presents itself, and you know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to say it. He's going to be more likely than not inactive every week. That's what this league is about, opportunities. An undrafted former quarterback turned tight end, Amani Rodgers, took advantage of an opportunity that he was presented, and look, he's active every week. Cole Turner was a 5th-round pick. They had high hopes for him. He gets hurt. The opportunity was presented to a different player. He took advantage, and now he's on the outside looking in. So that's what this league is all about. So Cole Turner just has to prepare himself, and if an opportunity presents itself, he's got to take advantage. All right. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JL Smooth, writes, agreed, Lou. Meant the coach has to adapt to his players' strengths, not drop Mario Williams into coverage every 3 plays. Exactly. Right? Like, don't be that guy that says, hey, this is what the defense calls for, so I'm going to have my best pass rusher dropping at a, 45-degree angle into a hook zone. That's the stupidest thing ever. You have to be malleable and adjust to what your players are best at, and so I struggle with that. I struggle with my best player only having 1 target in the first half of a football game. I struggle with that because it's not hard to get a guy a target. It's not hard to get a playmaker the ball in his hands. I struggle with that. I don't want to hear the defense dictated to us what we could and couldn't do. If you want to get a guy the rock, you can get him the rock. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's too many ways that you can find a way to get a guy to football. I don't care if they're pressing. I don't care if they're being aggressive. Okay, I can send my guy in motion. I can use bunch formations, stacks. I can do so many different things to free my guy up. I don't want to hear it. Like sometimes I think coaches make this thing harder than it needs to be. It's not easy, okay? I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that it's easy being a coach and that they just need to dumb it down. There's a sophistication that goes with this that a lot of us could never even begin to comprehend. However, sometimes I think they make this out to be harder than they need to make it out to be. Abel Ambrosio, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, what up, Lou? Fins or Philly? Who gets their L first? I would just go out on a limb and say, well, let's look at the schedule. That's going to determine what's what. I'm going to say right now, probably Miami gets their L first because I just know the Eagles' schedule is very favorable. Now, they do play Dallas here in a couple of weeks. They play Arizona in week 5, if I'm not mistaken. Jacksonville this week, at Arizona, home for the Cowboys on Sunday night, then at home for the Steelers, then at the Texans. I mean, these are all winnable football games. Meanwhile, if we go to the Miami Dolphins, they could lose this week at Cincinnati. That's a tough game on a short week. Tua just got banged up pretty good. They could easily lose to the Bengals on Thursday night. Then they got the Jets, which is a winnable game, but then they're home for the Vikings. I mean, they got some winnable games. Home for the Steelers, at the Lions, at the Bears, home for the Browns, home for the Texans. I mean, this is a really doable schedule. So, I mean, I could see both of those teams, getting to 7-8-0 before losing a game. But I could see each of these teams also losing in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think the Dolphins probably are going to lose on Thursday. So I take the Dolphins and say they're going to lose first. Let's see. Jamal Hamlet, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jamal writes, Lou, I've been around the world and can't get away from Cowboy fans. Hell, my son married one. I guess at some point I failed as a father. I need this win. LOL. Oh, man. Look, man. I've been there, done that. I've already told you that my entire family were Cowboys fans, except for one of my sisters. My mom, my dad, my other sister, all Cowboys fans. I ended up marrying someone. I converted her now, in large part because Jerry Jones is so obnoxious. She couldn't take it anymore. But when I first met her, she was a Cowboys fan. So I can't get away from them either. They're everywhere. They're very annoying, and I feel your pain, man. That said, I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, we had 50 total yards of offense at halftime. It was 24-0. The week before, we might have been we were worse against Detroit. At least the defense fought and the special teams showed up, and, it kind of fell apart because of, circumstances, but we were way worse. Nothing went right in Detroit, and we were lucky to be down 22-0. I can't. I wish I had something for you, man. I wish I had words of encouragement, but I got nothing for you, man. I'm so sorry, Jamal. That's the life of being a Washington Commanders fan, man. We don't get any breaks, man. We get it from all angles because we don't beat anybody in the division. I mean, hell, Daniel Jones plays his best football against us. He's got a winning record against Washington and a losing record against every other team in the league. Everybody gets their rocks off against us. So, I mean, we don't get to sun anybody. Everybody gets to sun us. So it's tough, man. It sucks. But unfortunately, that's the team you chose to root for. That's the team we chose to root for. And so this is where we find ourselves year in, year out. Anyway, I digress. John Livingston, my guy, JL Smooth. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, agreed again. And can you hit your sources to get him more targets? I traded for Terry, man. Get him the damn ball. Shout out to Miss Perry. Hope all is well, and hit the thumbs up, y'all. And that's the thing that I can't wrap my brain around. Now, Terry ultimately had 100 yards receiving and actually ultimately had a solid game statistically. But if you watch the game, all of his yards didn't come in garbage time. We were still fighting into the third quarter, and we had the ball with a chance. And remember, we were only down 3 scores, three touchdowns, 2-point conversions, and it's a tie ball game now. The likelihood of that happening slim and none, but a lot of his catches came while we were still trying to, fight our way back into the game. And we had done it the week prior, so it wasn't impossible. But there's no excuse to go the entire first half and guys like Terry and Jahan Dotson only have 1 target or 1 touch. That's just asinine to me. Curtis Samuel seems to get tons of targets and catches because he's the guy that we like to work underneath. But at some point, you got to get these playmakers involved, whether you handing it to them, whether you're running a screen to them, whether you're calling a play that specifically runs rubs to get them the rock, whatever the case may be. You got to do a better job of getting your playmakers involved. There's no excuse. I don't want to hear what coverage is dictating. There's certain times where, coverage dictates that we go to Jahan Dotson. Yep, I get that. But that's because you just called a play and there's a first, a second, a third, and a fourth read on that play. So that's cool. Whatever coverage dictates, You work one side of the field, and then you go through your progressions, and you get the ball wherever coverage dictates the ball should go. But then there's, hey, we need to get Terry involved. We need to get Terry a touch. That's not hard. When you make up your mind, hey, we need to get so-and-so a touch. Okay, get him a touch. Get him involved. I would do it early in the ball game. I would never allow my best players, my skill guys that I know are going to be a huge part of the reason why we're going to win the game. I would never allow them to go the entire first quarter without a touch. I would make it my business. My first 15, I'm scripting. Well, inside of the first 15, my first 5 is going to make sure that my playmakers are touching the football. My best players are going to get a touch early in the game so that they're in the game mentally. Again, that's just me. All right. Thank you guys for chopping it up with me. That was fun. So was the game tonight. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the game tonight. Cowboys get the win 23-16 over the New York Football Giants. Giants have been knocked from the ranks of the unbeaten. Both teams leave the game at 2-1. Thought it was a well-played game on both sides. I did feel like the officials, imparted themselves into this game, made some calls that I didn't agree, missed some calls. There was one where the Cowboys receiver is being absolutely stonewalled by 2 Giant defenders, and there's no call. How do you not call that a penalty? I don't know. There's a play where the Cowboys receiver is in the end zone, and he gets literally tackled by Holmes, the corner. How is that not a penalty? I don't know. But then the Giants, Sterling Shepard is literally trying to come back to the football. He has no idea. Like, he's running an entire route. And now he turns over and he looks and he sees Trayvon Diggs running at him full speed, and he runs into him. And they throw him a flag like he's setting a pick. He's not setting a pick. I mean, there were a couple of questionable calls. I didn't like the Donovan Wilson flag for, I thought at the bare minimum, you want to flag him there, flag him for delay a game. Okay, he knocked the ball away. Now he's got to go run the ball down, or okay, flag him for a 5-yard delay a game penalty. That's what I thought they were going to do. Don't flag him for unsportsmanlike conduct. It's a 15-yard penalty in a game where at one point it was 6-6 and it was 13-13. You can't do that. That's the difference between Graham Gano kicking a 58-yard field goal and them having to punt. You can't do that. So I thought the officials were a little bit uneven tonight, but at the end of the day, I've said this already. I'll say it again. I thought the better team won. I thought the team that was supposed to win won. And when it was all said and done, the missed calls, the bad calls, they evened themselves out. And I think the playing field was pretty much level. So Cowboys get the win 23-16. 2 in a row for them. 2 in a row for Cooper Rush as a starter in relief of Dak Prescott. We'll see if they keep that Cooper Rush train going, or if they decide to go back to Dak Prescott this week. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow on the Louie T Network podcast. Week 3, really interesting, man. Can't wait to chop it up with you guys about it. Until then, you guys have a good one. God bless. And as always, good night.